take our seats. Welcome to this afternoon's work session. First order of business would be to see if any commissioner would like to discuss any preliminary item for next board meeting. Hearing none, we'll jump right into it. First presentation will be Marta, Q4 quarterly briefing. Hey.
Good evening, Chairman Turner and Commissioners. I am Carrie Rocha, Chief Capital Officer at MARTA, and I'm pleased to provide you with MARTA's quarterly Q4 jurisdictional update. With me today, I have Jennifer LaRosa with our Government Affairs Group, as well as Shelley Pert, our AGM of Planning and Project Development. Online today, we also have MARTA board members watching us, Valencia Williamson and Chair Catherine Powers. So we start this evening looking at the great capture on the cover here of the groundbreaking event on November 15th for the Clayton County O&M facility. We are proud to really show that we are making Clayton County our home. Thank you, Chairman Turner, Commissioner Reeves, and of course, Representative Demetrius Douglas, Mayor Angeline Butler, Councilwoman Kimberly Jones, Chair-elect Anderson, and board members, MARTA board members Rod Frierson, Segura Jones, and Clayton County's own Valencia Williams. Next slide, please. Or I can do that. So we will proceed with our operational update. This report is through October of 2024, and as you can see, our bus service is continuing to increase and rebound from COVID. Rail service is remaining relatively stagnant, and as you'll see, through the months, especially in the winter months, we do have some fluctuation over the holidays, so we can anticipate that coming forward. Although our 5-year amenities program is complete, as we noted at our last quarterly briefing, we will strive to keep our bus stops in order, and thank you to Commissioner Davis for reporting an issue on a damaged stop and shelter at Mount Zion and Terra Boulevard. We had the stop cleaned up within a few days, and as we've just completed our amenities program, we don't currently have a lot of backlog of those shelters, so we will continue to stock those up and make sure that we can do the replacements as soon as possible. With respect to our bus service modifications, last quarter we informed you of the upcoming service modification of the Route 191, and we're proud to demonstrate here some of the public engagement and outreach efforts that we made to make sure the public was included in the decisions, as well as informed of those changes. And recently we know that the City of Atlanta has approved this modification as well, so we look forward to the modification being put in place. And this slide will demonstrate the digital outreach we did for the service modification. The modification was streamed on YouTube, which garnered a number of views, and you can see the different social media platforms that we use to publicize the modification changes. I do want to note some of the work that's been going on at our airport station rehabilitation project. This fantastic project is really transforming our airport station into a much more welcoming environment. You will be able to walk through from the airport baggage claim terminals and be able to see really a seamless transition between the airport and MARTA. So we're really proud of the improvements. We've replaced all of our platform tiles, as well as installed terrazzo in the concourse area, which really gives the area a much brighter look. We've installed a mosaic art installation on the wall as you walk into the concourse, as well as a new elevator. We're working on a new ride store, new lighting, and many of these improvements, they'll be completed before the World Cup in 2026. And now I will get specifically into our capital expansion projects. Starting off first with the MARTA Rapids South Lake project. We have made a selection of our final designer. We will be going to the MARTA board at the February Planning and Capital Programs Committee, as well as the MARTA full board in March. So February for PCP and March for the full board to be able to ask for permission to execute that contract. So we look forward to progressing the final design on this so that we can prepare construction plans for bid. We have also had a class of action determination from the FTA, and that has been a documented categorical exclusion. So it's really good news for this project as we continue to move forward with our environmental and special studies, that we can very quickly now get into the design and construction process. We are awaiting our federal funding rating. We submitted for the Capital Investment Grant Program in August, and we anticipate hearing back on that rating in late January, early February. And finally, we did issue an RFP for the transit-oriented development study along this alignment, and that selection has also been made. We anticipate that going to the MARTA board in January for the Planning and Capital Programs Committee, and February for the full board to execute that contract. Next up, we have our MARTA Rapid SR 54 update. We are well into the alternatives analysis for this project. We are refining the project schedule, and we are really targeted at getting an approved LPA, locally preferred alternative, within the calendar year 2025. Next step is to do a planning charrette with county and local jurisdiction technical committees, and that will take place in Q1 of 2025. And we have ongoing local municipality outreach to get input into this project. With respect to the Clayton multipurpose O&M facility, as I noted in the opening, we did have our great groundbreaking, which was very exciting to celebrate here in Clayton County. The demolition contractor was awarded their contract by the MARTA board in late September. They were issued an administrative notice to proceed in November, which allows them to get underway with their submittals and work plans and schedule and safety and insurance and all of those aspects that lead to getting under construction. We anticipate construction starting roughly towards the end of December in order to start with some of the hazardous material mitigation inside the buildings, and then you'll be able to visibly see some things after that work is complete. The 100% design plans are expected to be ready for bid late Q1 of 2025, and we are working on final specifications, plans, and cost estimates for that. With regard to the Clayton County Justice Center Transit Hub, the 100% final design and cost estimate are expected to be complete by the end of April in 2025. The invitation for bid is expected within the quarter as well. And we have been working closely with the county to put some temporary fencing between the transit hub and the Justice Center, and that will be complete by the end of Q1 2025. And in other news, we've had a number of engagement events, and I won't go through all of them here on the screen, but they've been really exciting to be a part of here in Clayton County. The last one I'll note is the only one that has not happened already, and that is for the O&M facility community meeting that is for tomorrow in Forest Park. And finally, we wrap up our year of celebrating our civil rights leaders, and we want to take just this chance to celebrate all 5 of the specially wrapped buses for honoring these heroes, and it was a pretty amazing event for those of you that did attend. MARTA is committed to showing respect and honoring Atlanta's essential role in the civil rights movement and to highlight the intersection of transportation and equity. As a result, we've been rolling out these wrap buses to celebrate that role in the movement. We've previously reported on buses celebrating the lives of Dr. King and Coretta Scott King, Juanita Jones Abernathy, Joseph E. Lowry. On September 12th, we unveiled the Congressman John Lewis bus and held a voter registration drive at College Park. On October 4th, we honored the late civil rights icon, Reverend Dr. Joseph E. Lowry and Evelyn Gibson Lowry. And on November 15th, we unveiled our last civil rights bus for the season that honored Ambassador Andrew Young. We were joined by the last living icon himself and the other 5 living mayors of the city of Atlanta. Again, all buses will tour through each jurisdiction in service. The Route 191 is usually the route of choice in Clayton for the highest visibility and ridership. As this is our last briefing for the year, I want to thank this commission for your time, and thank you very much for your support of MARTA.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions for Carrie?
Oh, yes. I'm not sure if you're the person from MARTA to answer this question, or if there's another individual from MARTA who can answer. But can you talk a little bit about the community engagement process for route modifications? We discussed earlier, I have a constituent who is asking about bus stops. Bus stops on busy intersections that come through residential areas. Can you talk a little bit more about that
Sure,
community engagement process?
Absolutely. I'm not sure, Shelley or Jennifer, if you want to talk the different steps that we go through.
I think the modifications might be.
Come on, whoever's speaking, please come.
Service change out.
Yeah. We do have a very prescriptive process for service changes requiring hearings and things, so.
Yeah,
Shelley.
to the process, I think there was a slide that we were just showing for the modification for 191. If we kind of scroll back to that. And it's not going to detail all the things that we do, but there are requirements where we have to, it requires a public hearing.
Right.
But I think more specifically, if I could just ask you, is there a request for a modification, or did you just want to go through a process?
Well, I believe the constituent concern came about because the route was modified, and so now there is a bus stop coming through a residential street. And so I'm just curious about what.
Oh, so it's not this one?
I'm not sure if it's that particular route. I know that's one of, I think, 3 routes that MARTA just modified, and so I don't know if I'm hearing of it because they just noticed the bus stop in their area, but I'm curious about.
If there is a stop that we've put in that is affecting negatively somebody's, especially if it's residential, if you just let us know, we can take a look at it and see if there's something that we can do to modify it. But we usually do a whole long list of public engagement and outreach to let people know that what's coming. It's a requirement. It's not something that we just take and kind of put out there. So there are all these different steps that we go through, and then we have a public meeting, and then it has to be taken to the board. But again, I can't imagine that she wasn't aware, but maybe she wasn't, maybe she was out of town or something, but if you'll kind of just let us know, and
Absolutely.
I can look further into it.
Follow up.
And Michelle, if you could give us your full name for the.
Oh, sure, sorry, Shelley
Right.
Peart, P-E-A-R-T, S-H-E-L-L-E-Y, P-E-A-R-T. Oh, I'm so sorry, okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
You know, I speak fast. Shelley
And-
Peart. It's S-H-E-L-L-E-Y, P-E-A-R-T. And I'm the AGM of Planning and Project Development. I won't give you my number
Thank you,
right
Shelley.
now.
Commissioner Reeves?
It's not a question. It's just more just a commendation and just
Oh, yeah.
I believe is Clayton County the only county in Georgia to have 2 MARTA capital improvement projects ongoing or
You
in the
have more than
pipeline?
2. You have 3? You have about 4 right now. Yeah.
So we're
You're-
leading the state
I think you're
in the
actually,
transit.
yeah, you're kind of up there, which is good, and we're really excited about it.
Yes, ma'am, we are leading. We are
Yes,
leading.
you are.
We are leading the service area. No, I like where you're going. I like where
Thank
you're
you.
going. Any other questions for Carrie? Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation, and thank you and the crew for being here. How you doing, Mr. Hightower?
Thank you.
All right, next up is land development, separation from land use and zoning requests. We're going to have Mr. Ejiki, I believe.
Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. Just want to give you an update on what we are thinking as staff in improving our code, both in the zoning code and the land development code. There are areas in the zoning and land development code where they are commingled, and it kind of slows down what we do as staff, and it also presents some kind of dilemma when you guys are making policy decisions. So, in the zoning code, we have land development elements in it, and sometimes it's more difficult to enforce from our side. Requires us to have numerous meetings. Land use and zoning is really land use and zoning. The land development side is the engineering side. So we're trying to walk through, the 2 departments will be collaborating to do this. So by the time this whole idea will manifest itself when we go to the zoning rewrite, so that you guys kind of have a heads up as to what is coming, why we are making those changes in the code is to simplify what we're doing, make it much easier to do, so that we're not arguing with our developers or builders at the zoning part of it. So that when we get to zoning, we're only talking about the use and not the water and not the things that are not zoning related. Those things that are that are land development related needs to be on the engineering side. As you can see, I'm not going to just give you an example. In the zoning code, you have these 8 articles where there are land development references in them. This is just a highlight of what we're talking about, that we're going to be working with transportation and development to go through. And while we're coming now, because it's going to be a little bit of a shift when you guys see it, so that you guys understand what we're trying to do. More specifically, out of those articles, you see things like curb cuts, utilities, and if you go through this list, and none of it sounds like zoning. They're all in the land development areas. So these are the things, assignment we are working with, where the 2 departments will be collaborating in trying to iron this out, so that once we get into the land development, the zoning rewrite, it will be ironed out. And when you guys see the results of this of that project, so that it's not alarming. And that's what I wanted to.
Now they just happy. That was happy laughter.
Yes.
Exactly.
Any questions for Mr. Ejike?
I have a question. So how will this separation affect, what's the word I'm trying to use? The approval process?
Yeah. It will make the approval process better and faster.
Okay.
And what we are hoping that the board, why it's coming up now, so the board embraces it. You guys are the final decision makers, so that when we get into zoning, we deal with zoning. When we get into land development, we deal with land development. Mm-hmm. It should make what we do a whole lot easier for both departments.
It seems like it'll clarify a lot of questions ahead of time that
Exactly.
the board might have as to whether or not certain things are included within that process. So
Exactly.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Great.
Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Impact fees update. Chief Murchison.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board. We wanted to bring forth to you an update on where we are with the development impact fee program we started a little over a year and a half ago. And also with me this evening are our consultants from WSP. We have Lee Walton and Paige Hatley. Ms. Hatley will be bringing the bulk of the presentation this evening. But I did just want to do kind of a brief reminder kind of what impact fees are and kind of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So just as a brief update, so impact fees are authorized by the state of Georgia. They are a form of revenue authorized and regulated by the state pursuant to OCGA 3671-1, also known as the Georgia Development Impact Fee Act, or DEFA. And they are administered through the Georgia Department of Community Affairs under Chapter 110-12-2, which is known as the Development Impact Fee Compliance Requirements. And this is a section under the Georgia Administrative Code. Under this act, a city or county can collect money from new development based on and that does not exceed that development's proportionate share of the cost to fund future public facilities that will be needed. Impact fees cannot be used to solve existing service deficiencies and must be spent only on public facilities that create new capacity to keep pace with the number of future residents and businesses as the county continues to grow. The key is that each capital improvement, whether it's land, buildings, or long-lived vehicles, must create new capacity within the system to keep pace with the number of future residents and businesses. And all of this is captured in the improvements element, the capital improvements element, which I sent out to y'all at the end of last week, so you could kind of take a look at the document. So kind of what the purpose of a capital improvements element is to establish where and when new capital facilities are planned to be provided within a jurisdiction and to the extent which they may be financed through an impact fee program. A capital improvements element is adopted as a chapter or an element in a local government's comprehensive plan. The board just went through the process of updating the county's comprehensive plan, and this capital improvements element was a part of that process. It's very typical for comp plans to be updated and then a capital improvements element come after the fact, but they were created kind of synergistically to make sure that they were aligned properly. This capital improvements element addresses the following public safety categories: library services, parks and rec, animal control, fire protection, EMS, emergency management, E911, police services, and the sheriff's office, and jail. As required by the Georgia Development Impact Fee Act, as defined by the Department of Community Affairs, the CIE must include the following for each capital facility category for which an impact fee will be charged. That is a projection of needs for the planning period, which for the purpose of Clayton County, we're leveraging 2025 to 2050. And that's consistent with the recently adopted comprehensive plan update, so these two documents are moving simultaneously. The designation of service areas, which are geographic areas in which defined set of public facilities provides service to development within the area. The designation of levels of service, the service level that is provided and will be provided, a schedule of improvements, and then a description of funding sources for the planning period. And just to kind of give you an idea of where we sit, so based off the projections contained in this document, the county will have a need for roughly $271.938 million in infrastructure to keep pace with our current growth. So part of an impact fee program is to help the county determine how do you pay for that moving forward to ensure that as the county grows, we can continue to protect it. So under the state act are limited capital items having a life expectancy of at least 10 years, such as land, buildings, and other facilities, and major rolling stock, such as fire trucks. So that would be any large type vehicle that would have a useful life of 10 years or more. Impact fees cannot be used for the maintenance, supplies, personnel salaries, or other operational costs, or for short-term capital, such as computers, furniture, or passenger automobiles, and none of those are calculated in this document. So when you look at everything that's laid out for you in the capital improvements element, it is those major critical infrastructure needs, facilities, additional park facilities, infrastructure type things that would typically be funded through the general fund. Okay. So that's kind of what is, or by the fire fund, whichever the case may be. So that's all that's included in here, and like I said, we're pushing about $271 million in future needs. So with that brief introduction, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hatley, and she'll walk you through where we've been and, more importantly, where we're going.
All right.
Paige, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am Paige Hatley. I am part of the WSP team. That was a fantastic overview, and that makes my job a lot easier to just quickly run through the rest of these slides. I do want to focus a little bit about on the impact fee study process overall. We want to emphasize where we are, which is the CIE, as has been mentioned. That is required for all communities that want to collect impact fees. So it is, as mentioned, it's construed or identified by the Georgia Department of Community Affairs as a distinct element of a comprehensive plan. And so if the county ultimately elects to adopt an impact fee program and collect fees, you would have to adopt the CIE, which would then be incorporated into as a standalone appendix to your comp plan. That's something that we're looking at in early 2025, and you have the preliminary draft with you this evening. So the CIE, that's what focuses on the bottom line as to what the capital project needs are over 20 years. In terms of the fees that could be charged to help pay for those projects, that's established in what's called a development impact fee ordinance. So that happens at the end of the process. One, we identify, well, what are the capital projects needed to serve growth and development for the long term, and then how to help pay for those. We had significant discussion to ascertain what the fees should be. Now, we have a series of calculations in what's called a methodology report that you'll also be seeing next year that details what the maximum fees could be to help pay for the projects that are identified in the CIE. And that's important because the state law, DEFA, the Development Impact Fee Act, says we can't charge new development more than their fair share of the cost of these future public facilities that are needed to support new growth and development. So there's a ceiling that's calculated called the maximum fee schedule that you'll see calculated in the methodology report that will come back around to you with detailed discussion when we get into the fee setting stage. The methodology in essence is a really robust technical appendix, and it gives us everything we need to craft the CIE and the ordinance itself. And then at the end of the day, having the adopted CIE and ordinance officially, in accordance with state law and standards, establishes an impact fee program. The CIE, just as it was done with your comprehensive plan, has to go for review. That's about a 2-month process. At that point in time, while that's under DCA review, is when we want to come back and talk about that maximum fee schedule as the basis for discussion on the fee setting. And then the ordinance, which at the end of the ordinance would be the fee schedule. That's the home for it. But the ordinance itself is a robust document, and that it has significant guidance in terms of administering and maintaining an impact fee program to ensure the county's compliance with state law. That requires 2 public hearings. Again, that discussion for that with the fees and the ordinance would be during the CIE review process, so that we're keeping things going while DCA is looking at the CIE. So as far as where we've come then, the first 2 items are part of the state requirements for communities that are considering to adopt an impact fee program. There are additional steps that have to be taken as opposed to communities that are just maintaining or updating a program. One is having an additional public hearing at the front end, which was done as a kickoff, if you will, early on in the process. There's been an initial advisory committee meeting with the appointed committee that will also convene again to talk about fees. I'll touch on in a second. We've had significant departmental meetings to get the very detailed information needed at the departmental level for each of the public facility categories. We've got significant detailed housing, population, and employment forecasts that, as mentioned, sync up with the numbers in your recently adopted comp plan. And also we made modifications to the expanded fire service area, which includes Riverdale, so we had to adjust and create more detailed projections for that change in geography. So that gives us the preliminary CIE. Just the only new thing to add here is it does not touch fees at all. It doesn't talk about fees. The state, DCA, doesn't see anything about fees. They're just going to be looking at the projects, both the 20-year master list, as well as from that master list, those anticipated to be done in the next 5 years, which have to be presented in a 5-year community work program, similar to the 5-year work program you have in your comp plan. Just this CWP is focused on particular capital project needs. As far as the approach to pulling together the CIE, really just some few basics as far as impact fees. One, we look to see what is already in the county's systems. What do you have in your park system? What do you have in terms of the number of playgrounds, the number of ball fields? For fire, how many fire stations are maintained, fire trucks, et cetera. The idea is that whatever you have serving the community now, future growth is going to have to benefit from additional needs. What you have now is going to have to expand, so new growth and development will receive the same level of service from the same type of services. So that's where we have a lot of the information, the coordination with the departments to understand exactly what you have now. Also, what is known in terms of adopted plans, what is needed. We utilize any plans and studies that you have. I know the Trails Plan is just one example. We want to know what's in your SPLOST program. And again, that's departmental coordination. What are pending projects? What do you see on the ground that's coming that we need to be mindful of and can help make eligible for impact fee funding as part of the CIE process? And then, as mentioned previously, we're looking out to 2050, so the next 25 years. Don't have a crystal ball, but do our best to understand, based on projections, what could be anticipated. And then if the county adopts an impact fee program, about every 5 years, we'd come back and do a significant update, just as you would with your comp plan. The example I've got here is just to show you the type of information that's in the CIE. This is a summary table from E911, and this is formatted in response to the state's requirements. They have guidelines that we have to adhere to, and so they want to know, well, what's the project? How much is it going to cost? When is it anticipated to be done? But these years are all subject to change. We have to make a good first initial guess, and then every year, these years can be modified during the annual budget process in your 5-year work program. So then, moving forward, as we end this year, going into next, we will be finalizing the preliminary CIE draft. We'll be bringing that full final version back to you. It formally has to have a public hearing, and then the board can vote to transmit it for DCA review. That's when we'd come back to have some fee setting discussions. The advisory committee providing their advice. They don't have any formal action, if you will, other than we will share with you what their thoughts are on prospective fees and have detailed discussions with the board on what could be charged to help pay for the projects. At the end of it all, then, if the county does finalize things and adopt an impact fee program after staff training, we're looking at spring that the county could be in the business of collecting impact fees. Last slide. This is a preview. This is the type of information that we'll be sharing during the fee setting stage. We're looking at every community that's authorized to collect impact fees in the state. You may not be interested in every community, but I just think it's helpful just while we have the information just to show it for any comparison you find useful. This is for the fees that are currently charged per single-family house. We will have a fee schedule that's 2 pages that addresses residential, commercial, office, industrial uses. But this is what resonates with most people, and it helps us make an apples-to-apples comparison in terms of fees. So we don't know what your maximum fee that could be charged for a detached single-family house, but wanted to let you know that this is currently, you can see the range of adopted fees that are being collected across the state. Some of these programs haven't been updated in many, many years. Some of them are charging less than the maximums that they could. There are a lot of factors that come into play, but this is just one example of the type of information that we'll be sharing to aid your discussions when we get to the fee setting. What did I know? I'll shut it down. Did I leave anything out?
No, ma'am.
Because I'm done with my content.
I think you got it.
Thank you.
Don't go far.
Okay.
Questions?
Thought you was about to bring another 3 or 4 slides.
No, sir.
Okay. Any
that
questions
wraps
for
us up.
for this DCOO or for Ms. Hadley?
Yes, I have one, Chair. Love it. It's a long time in the waiting. The DCA review process, what's that process and what's that timeline like?
So they are only responsible for reviewing the CIE, which you have the preliminary draft. They do mandate a public hearing, and that after the public hearing closes, then the board can immediately vote to transmit the draft through to resolution. And then that immediately, as soon as it's emailed the next day or so to the ARC, they act as the clearinghouse and will forward it to DCA. And the first day when ARC receives it, that starts about a 60-day clock. It's not quite 60 days, but I round up.
Okay.
And so they have up to about 2 months for DCA to come back and say, okay, we've looked at this, you're good, now you can adopt. They may have comments, sometimes they do, but that 2-month period generally gives enough time to, if there's anything we have to resubmit, any wordsmithing on or tweaks to satisfy DCA, that 2-month period does that. Now, as far as adoption, typically we would say for a new community is hold off on adopting the CIE until you have the ordinance. So we have the approved DCA approved CIE waiting, but then we adopt it after the second public hearing to consider the ordinance and fee schedule. So we're doing everything at the same time.
Okay, and so if I just want to make sure I'm following this correctly. So that ordinance is going to allow us, the passing of an ordinance would allow us to utilize that CIE.
Well said. The CIE is your projects, and the ordinance says how much you can charge to help pay for the projects. Is basically the bottom
Great.
line.
My last question is, and I think I heard this correctly, so we can only update the CIE or the CIE projects once every 5 years?
No, you can you can amend your CIE at any time,
Okay.
but you do have to follow the more robust process that you can't just say, well, we want to add a project. You would sort of have to do a mini version of what we're doing now, because adding projects affects the fees, and then do you want to change your fees to accommodate those additional projects? But what can be done annually is a reporting requirement where you have the 5-year work program. Then those projects have to come from the CIE, but you can use that as an opportunity to refine years and cost estimates. Updating, doing a full amendment to change projects, you can do at your leisure. Typically, we suggest that be done about every 5 or so
Okay.
years after you do your comp plan, revisit your major project list.
Thank you. And that does not have to go back through DCA?
It does.
It
It
does?
does, just because it's part of the comp plan, just
Okay.
how they want to see every 5-year update, it's the same. It's a separate process, but it's similar, because they want to look at it as an element of your comp plan.
Thank you.
And to add, I think, to kind of some of the basis I'm reading into your question is even during that 60-day window, our work doesn't stop. So we'll continue to work toward finalizing the methodology report, working on what that fee structure may look like, while DCA is kind of in their review.
Great.
So we just won't be kind of in a holding, we'll continue to function and work.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Amber.
Looking at the fee schedule for the other counties, I'm just looking maybe like in 23, 24 for Camden and Cherokee. Are these amounts yearly, annually, monthly, or?
So Camden County, for example, anytime a building permit is issued for a single-family home, $1,052.62 is collected.
Okay.
So this is showing the trigger for collecting impact fees is a building permit. And for this specific use, the example is a single-family house. So someone comes in for 50-home subdivision, multiply that by the 1,052, and so it's just constantly, continually rolling fees depending on the pace of development in an area.
And the year, Commissioner, is the last year their fees were updated.
I'm sorry, thank you. Correct. That is the effective fee. The Camden County revisited their fees in 2024. Their maximum was significantly higher, but they elected to update their project list and in essence continue to charge what they've been charging for the past 15 years. That's why it hasn't increased, but their maximum was probably $8,000 a house.
Okay, and the other thing, pros and cons. I can see and hear the pros, so give me some of the cons or the negatives. I'm thinking of one.
Well, obviously, I think kind of where everybody goes to is, will this cost be passed on to the end user, whether that's the developer of the commercial site, whether that's the homeowner, whether that's, whoever that may be. The answer to that is more than likely. However, if you don't charge the impact fee, and some developers choose to pay those as part of their permitting fees and part of when they bid projects and all that, it's calculated. Pretty much everybody around us is charging them. So we can look at it one of two ways. We can look at it as we do it as a part of the development process, and we do it as a part of bringing in these new developments, and that cost is spread out across, let's say it's a 250 home development, right? So using the Camden County, so we know it's going to be 250 multiplied by 1,052. They'll look at that math and say, okay, we need to increase our home price by X. So that's one way to look at how that fee is calculated. So in theory, you're passing it on to the individual that's buying that particular home, right? Well, another way to look at it is if we don't charge it and the people that are buying the new home aren't paying it, then everybody else in the county that may not be anywhere around that is going to pay it when we have to bump taxes to cover the cost of the infrastructure upgrades. Because just looking at the projections, if you look at what the county has on the books now, that what's been approved from single family to townhomes to other residential properties, we're going to struggle to protect those developments. We just simply don't have the money to expand the infrastructure from a development standpoint. So what this is doing is looking at spreading that cost out to the development and those people that are now going to buy in that development and come in. So now there's a pot of money sitting there to help us say, okay, we can add a new police station, we can add a new fire station, we can add new parks and recs facilities, library services, and the taxpayers that may live nowhere near that aren't footing that bill anymore. So when you look at the cons, that's really about the only one that's, I mean, pros are numerous, right? It's another revenue source for the county that we don't have now. If you look at our neighbors, hasn't slowed Fayette down a bit. Henry's got a new $1 billion development going in off Jodico Road. Everything in that development paid an impact fee. So when you look at just what's going in that one development, the fees there are probably paying for more firefighters, more police officers, and all that infrastructure that goes with that. So it's really just kind of looking at it. Could you say that that's a con, it would drive the price up? Sure, but you know, driving the price of a $500,000 home up by $1,000 over 30 years is a far more easier investment than the county having to foot the bill for $280 million roughly in infrastructure investments, just in those 5 service areas.
Yeah, I wouldn't, well, I don't see that individuals or buyers, you know, the home buyers would be discussing that. But I'm just wondering the talk, you know, among developers and all.
It's such a commonplace now for them. It's the cost of doing business.
Okay.
Like
and
I
they will
said,
pass
I mean,
it on, like you said. They will
quite
pass it
frankly,
on.
some of the developers that I've talked to are like, we're quite frankly surprised we didn't pay it.
Oh, okay.
On the development side now, when they go to the water authority, they pay impact fees because our water authority charges them.
Right.
So we're kind of a little bit behind the 8 ball in that mechanism. But I don't see a system to where a developer says, I'm not going to go build in Clayton because they charge impact fees.
Well, see,
because
that's what I was thinking.
if they want to build it in Fayette, you're going to pay it.
Right.
If they want to build it in Henry, you're going to pay it. And to a certain extent, we haven't been charging them, and they're not building here now.
Right.
So, you know, so it's just one of those things where when we're looking for any new way possible to bring additional revenue sources into this county, this is kind of some low-hanging, highly technical fruit that we could pick up on, especially as we start looking to try to redevelop areas of this county. That's where this comes in. Now, there are some that we chose to leave out of this chart. We intentionally left the city of Atlanta out. Their fees are up there. They just went through a 4-year process where I think they increased their fees by 25% over a 4-year period. So because they were so large, like if you build a new hotel in Atlanta, I think you're paying somewhere around $9,000 per room. So if you build a 200-room hotel, it's $9,000 per room to build that hotel, plus all the other fees that you got to pay. So some of those were kind of outliers. We didn't think were really apples to apples comparison, so we chose to leave them as to not make the data look skewed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Yes. I'm curious, when did the process for studying the impact fee, when did this begin for the county?
February 22nd, 2022 is when I made the presentation.
My goodness. Okay. And then I had a question about road maintenance. I I was curious if that would be under public safety. I see it in the comparison for other counties, but does the, and obviously you gave us a copy of the draft to review, but I'm just curious if road maintenance is included for Clayton County?
No, road improvements as a standalone category is not part of this study. If roads as an impact fee eligible category can't include maintenance, if roads were studied, it would have to be for capacity adding projects such as road widenings, major intersection improvements, but it can't do anything to assist with maintenance. And I think part of that was as far as funding potentially sources currently for roads, that it was decided not to pursue that with this study at this point in time. But I may be misspeaking.
No, ma'am, you're right. We kind of looked at the amount of federal grants that are out there for roads. And then a lot of the other road paving programs and stuff that we have that kind of handle maintenance. And since maintenance can't be a part of this, it has to be, to Ms. Heatley's point, new capacity. So if we wanted to look at adding a major roadway or something like that, then
Or
that
expanding?
could.
Or
Ma'am?
expanding roadways? Would that be included?
Yeah, you're talking about like taking an existing 4-lane to 6-lane? So that would be adding capacity,
Okay.
right? So yes, ma'am, to your point, it would have to be adding that additional capacity.
You know, I'm thinking about the trucks and the tractor trailers
I do.
that are, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you both for your presentation.
Yes, sir.
This is something that definitely will be good for the county. Thank you. All right, last presentation will be Sheriff Allen's smoking policy for the sheriff's office.
Major Jason Martin, Clayton County Sheriff's Office. On behalf of Sheriff Allen, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to discuss this matter before the workshop, so you'd have a better understanding before we present this to the next board meeting on the agenda. The Sheriff's Office has had an opportunity to purchase e-cigarettes, electronic cigarettes. The cost per cigarette is approximately $3.50 each, and the retail prices ranging from $10 to $12 as a retail sale value. Asserting that e-cigarette sales not only provides essential revenue for programs and help cover staffing costs, but it also enhances inmate morale. Sheriff Allen is actively seeking innovative approaches to think outside of the box to generate revenue for the county. This could potentially provide up to $1.5 million a year in revenue, and that's dependent upon sales on there. We have spoke with other sheriff's offices in the state of Georgia, two specifically, Coffee County and Atkins County, that has this program currently. And they have provided successful results as of this, not only inmate morale, but also revenue for the county as well. Approximately 10 years ago, we did have an e-cigarette program at the jail. And during that time, it was very successful during that time to generate revenue, and also it also provided the inmate morale as well. We believe the benefits in this reduction in contraband e-cigarettes can reduce the demand for contraband tobacco products, which are often smuggled into the jail facility. By providing a legal alternative, jail can decrease the risk and dangers associated with contraband, including violence and corruption. Improve inmate behavior and morale. Access to e-cigarettes can serve as a morale booster for inmates, potentially leading to improved behavior. This availability of such products can act as a stress reliever and provide the sense of normalcy in a high-control jail environment. Revenue generation for the facility and the county is the biggest thing on the table that we see. Sales of e-cigarettes can generate a significant revenue, which can be used to fund budget shortfalls that we may have within the county as it relates to the sheriff's office. The profits from e-cigarette sales can supplement funding for critical programs that may face budget cuts, including staff salaries, which are essential for maintaining safe and effective facility operations. The product we're looking at is from a company called Gel Puff. The products are 100% tobacco-free. The only chemical that is inhaled is nicotine, while exhaling water vapor eliminating any effects of secondhand smoke concerns. Is presenting this, it's the sheriff's position not to change any ordinance or county policy as it relates to vaping or any inside of the sheriff's office itself, because I know there's a policy and ordinance based on inside. That's not trying to change anything. I know the agenda says smoking policy. It's not trying to change anything as it relates to that. Only policy that we're trying to implement is a change within the jail facility. Jail facility meaning where the inmates reside. So this would be where this particular ordinance would have to be updated, and that's the focus of it, is the jail. So we're not trying to change anything at the sheriff's office as it relates to anything on county policy like that. We've also created a policy as it relates to e-cigarettes as well, for you guys to look at there. That would be the policy that we've created as it relates. It's a front and back copy, so it just didn't waste a lot of paper as it relates to that. So if this program is implemented, this would be what would be as the policy that would set forth.
You got 2 copies.
No problem. So again, we're just trying to, like I said, Sheriff Allen is trying to think outside of the box to create more revenue. Currently, we have commissary, which carries like noodles, Snicker bars, and other things that are sold on commissary. And there's other revenue generators, and that's just thinking outside of the box to create more revenue to help with budget shortfalls.
So I have a couple of questions.
Yes,
Correct
sir.
me if I heard you wrong, but I thought you said that the sheriff's office has had the opportunity or already purchased. Has the
No.
cigarettes already been purchased?
We haven't currently doing it. No, we have an opportunity to purchase this. Yes, sir. We've went out to look at other places. The sheriff's in current training right now, and of course, he's meeting with other sheriffs and other people across the state of Georgia. So with this, there's sharing ideas, sharing things with one another that's going to help bring back, and this was one of the things he was looking at that would help assist with generating revenue to help with budget shortfalls. And again, it's just something that we're looking into. Of course, the shortfall would be the policy and the ordinance thereof. And again, that's nothing to change except for where the inmates reside is what we're looking at.
And my second question is simply, I see a lot of ads and commercials that say vaping is bad for you.
Correct.
So if long-term detainees are vaping and they already might have other conditions, then by vaping, that definitely could exacerbate their condition, which means more health conditions that have to be paid for by the county, correct?
Well, according to the contract is paid for currently per inmate, not per health cost per thing, unless they go outside of
But
the
if somebody gets
facility
sick,
itself.
if somebody gets sick inside the jail,
And that's per inmate.
But you
They-
have to- but-
it doesn't increase the cost, so we pay a flat fee per inmate. So
what do you
whether
mean?
somebody gets.
What cost are you saying it doesn't increase? Which cost?
The healthcare costs would not increase. But according to the policy, that medical would have to clear each individual for that as well. So the policy that's designed that if medical comes through and says, hey, they should not be getting e-cigarettes, they would be blocked from that. The same as an individual in our facility that may have diabetes, they still have access to Snicker bars, Cokes, candies. They can take all they want to.
But you tell them they can't have it.
Yeah, you could tell them that, but
That's
they're
the
going
same
to
with
eat.
the
Yeah, it's
vaping.
the same aspects of it, but they're still going to have, health. It's the same. Just like the sodium in a pack of noodles is very high. It's very bad for your blood pressure. So there's a lot of people on blood pressure medicine. That still doesn't change the fact of healthcare cost is still the same whether they're eating 30 packs of noodles a week and their blood pressure skyrocketing. So it's still the same
And
as that. It doesn't.
As a result, they have to go to the hospital and have medical care.
Yeah, but still, we're selling them products. it still ain't gonna make any difference either way, if you feel what I'm saying. So, but the cost of the medical is per inmate, no matter which way you look at it. Now, if they do go out, of course, there are, associated costs from that point, but I don't see any difference in any other health condition that an individual have if they have opportunity to buy other junk food that would associate with risk of health conditions as well.
Any other questions?
Yes, Captain.
That's Major.
Major, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, yeah, no worries. It's no worries at all.
Major
Yes,
Martin.
ma'am.
I mean, I don't know much about e-cigarettes, but does the smoke affect others around them, or?
No, ma'am, absolutely not. The product is 100% water vapor, 100%. So as they inhale, this particular product's different than some of the other products that you may see on the street. This particular product is 100% water vapor. But it does have nicotine in it. I'm not going to hide that fact that it does. But as they inhale it, when they vape out, it's just going to be like a water vapor. And if you ever seen people vape in public, you've seen them take this big puff and this big cloud. They have cloud competitions now.
Right.
Big cloud stuff. Well, that ain't what you're going to see out of these particular e-cigarettes, because it's a different product inside of there which doesn't contain all the other stuff that these vapes and other things on the street that you would see. And the difference is because it doesn't produce that big vape cloud of smoke. It's just a water vapor that would come out, which would be a small, nothing of a cloud. And it doesn't affect others, so since it's a water vapor, it wouldn't be any damaging results for secondhand smoke or anything like that someone may be concerned with.
So the policy that the county has for no smoking, how would that affect what you all are planning to do with the cigarettes?
So from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is the no smoking policy in the county buildings. Also
county
include,
facilities.
it does include vaping. And that is, of course, our facility is a county facility. We're not asking to change anything as it relates to the sheriff's office. We're asking to change something to amend the policy to change just for the jail where the inmates reside. So it would not be anywhere there, it'd just be where the inmates reside to change this. And again, the biggest thing that we're trying to zero on is to create revenue, to think outside of the box, to have some different revenue to come in, because, as you heard earlier, people saying, we don't have the money for this, we don't have the money, a lot of things. And so if we stick to what we're doing, we're going to continue to say we have no money for programs. But if we try to think outside of the box and change and think of something, and again, Sheriff Allen has been in a training and talking to other sheriffs, talking to other things, what programs work for you guys? What have y'all been doing? And this came up as to a very successful program. And again, we did do it about 10 years ago, and it was very successful for revenue back then. So we're just trying to get that implemented back into the process.
Do you know why it was stopped?
Oh, yeah.
I do not. The only thing I can think of, possibly administration change or something. This was under a previous administration. I'm not sure why it stopped or changed, or maybe county policy made it change. I'm not 100% sure for the change, but again, we're just trying to bring it back to the table to come back up with it.
Any other questions?
Oh, yes, Major, I
Yes, ma'am.
had a question, and y'all don't laugh at me, but are inmates currently allowed cigarettes in the jail facility?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. This is strictly no smoking facility, period.
So the e-cigarettes are, okay.
It's
Well, my
just,
question was
that's
going to
the-
be
that's the
about
request.
the difference between cigarettes and
well,
e-cigarettes, but
cigarettes
it's currently.
is just tobacco. It's tobacco. You're lighting it with fire, smoking like that. These are e-cigarettes, which would be electronic cigarette, which would be a water vapor. So as they puff in on it, it'll give the whole effects of smoking per se. It leaves an inmate morale and them feeling some sort of normalcy. And in other facilities, they seem to have been calmer and feeling like, hey, this is great. Because you ever seen somebody or heard, I know we all have, man, this is a rough day. I mean, I don't smoke, but I've heard others say, man, this is a rough day. I got to go have me a cigarette. and they'll go out and smoke. So, and again, this is what we're trying to, not only to build the generate revenue, but if we can provide something for an inmate extra on top of what we do to help morale, so we can keep inmates calm into a sense of normalcy. And to get to your other question, Chairman, we are working with the courts, and the courts has been working with us to get inmates out of our facility and not stay in there as long, because COVID did bring us to a point to where inmates are in our facility longer, because at one point it was 2-3 years max that someone would be in our facility. And with that, the courts is helping us to expedite people out. Once they get sentenced to state time, we've been working with the clerk at the Superior Court to expedite affidavits to get the people down to the state prison. So we're trying to work and get people either released or down to the state prison, so we're not facing those challenges of someone being in our facility for an extended long time to keep healthcare costs down. So there's other measures that we have put in place to assist with getting people out of the facility, so they're not there for lengthy times to having to pay to worry about their health care, on a long-term basis.
Now, where would they be smoking at? You said designated areas. Could they
So-
smoke in their dorms?
So designated
in their
areas
cells?
would be, that's something that we'd have to totally discuss, but the discussed areas is in the open area, the common area of the day room, which is a big open area. If you've been there, I'm sure everyone here took a jail tour. If you didn't have it, set up with me, we'll go tour the jail. So, but anyway, in the day room area, there's the big open day room area to make that to where it's wide, it's open, it's got the ventilation.
Would they not be allowed in their cells to smoke it? And if so, how are you going to regulate it?
Yeah, that is something that we'd have to regulate. Now, if they can smoke in their cells, they can smoke in their cells. It is a water vapor, so, but far as designated area is the open area. But I still wouldn't see any issues for them smoking in their cells, because it's not necessary smoking. It's just more of a water vapor than anything. This particular product is designed just for jails. It's not designed for anything on the street, so it is a different product. Again, it doesn't have the chemicals and the other stuff that the things have on the jail. So even if they're in their cell with it, it wouldn't hurt or anyone else. It wouldn't actually affect anyone else.
And my last question,
Yes,
we
sir.
all know how ingenious these people are. You're giving them a product that's made out of what, plastic or whatever else? Is there
Yes,
not
sir.
a concern about them converting that to be weapons, some form or fashion?
Um,
And I don't know how big they are. I just
Yeah,
see them on
it's just a small product. It's not even as big as this pen. It's a very small product.
Yeah, but that pen can be used as a weapon, though.
But anything that we have could be used as a weapon. That, inmates are very smart with what they do. They have nothing but time to sit there and think about stuff.
Yeah.
So if we can't even give them a roll of toilet paper, because they can take the spool in there and harden it up and make something out of the actual, roll, inside of the roll of it. But far as keeping up with them, we'll have a specific staff member that would actually go on the floor to issue them out. They have to verify the inmate, verify their funds, issue them out. In order for any replacements, they would have to return the old one in working, good condition, not working, of course, it'd be out. They'd have to return the old one, not tampered, in order to get a new one. And if in fact that as a regular check, they go back through and say, hey, where's your e-cigarette at? Oh, I lost it, or anything like that, then their privileges will be cut off. And so we just have to regulate anything like that. But again, anything could be made a weapon. As we know, inmates are they're smart. They nothing but time. Think about stuff.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just had a clarification question.
Yes, ma'am.
So does this product have tobacco? I know you mentioned specifically there is nicotine in it, but is it also tobacco and nicotine in the?
No, ma'am, it's completely tobacco free. So all it is a nicotine inside of it and water. So it's a water vapor and nicotine only. It's not anything else that's in there, but there is no tobacco, there is no smoke. It's charged up within itself, so you don't have to recharge it. It's disposable when it's done. So once they get through puffing on it, whatever they do, it's done. It's a done product, and they'll turn it in to get a new one, to purchase a new one. And if you had one and you don't turn the old one in, your privileges will be cut off.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to make a comment.
Sure.
If you all would continue thinking of things.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, as far as revenue is concerned. So please keep doing that.
Yes, ma'am, most definitely. That's our goal, is to assist with that, because we want to be able to do something, because that's our, I mean, after all, if we have an avenue to make the revenue to help with budget shortfalls, I think that's our duty.
Please continue
And it's
to-
the sheriff's duty as the constitutional officer to make sure that as well. So I think that's where he's thinking outside of the box, is to make that happen.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation, Major. We
Thank you.
appreciate all that
All
you
right.
do.
Thank you.
All right, that was the last presentation, so at this time, you got something to say?
I do.
All right, Commissioner Hammer.
Several meetings we've had people to come up in public comment and other times talking about code enforcement. So I don't know if we need to do it on for a work session or when we go to the retreat, but we really need to look at code enforcement, whether it be employees or we need to change some things, but we really need to take a better, closer, sincere look at code enforcement. Just putting it out there.
Anybody have anything else before we adjourn? Hearing none. We are adjourned.